It's 11 o'clock.
Oh man, I just clicked on that. Right on the, just. I leapt on it.
Leapt on. Muon.
Muons, leptons.
You know,
Flavorful corpse.
It wasn't until Radio Science News last week that I realized that cows go muon and cats go muon. Muon and muon. See, the things that you learn on Radio Science News.
Yeah, I'm going to start.
And muons.
I'm going to start a political movement for physicists. Muon.org. What do you think? Some of them will get that. They'll just go, "Hey, that was clever, biologist." Do do. Bong. There we go. Oh, that was nice. It just kind of trickled off there.
Fade out. I'm going to turn it off before, being that we don't have to hear from the. What just happened?
You tried your best.
I don't know what's going on.
The ghost of Prince Philip. No.
Yes, the ghost of Prince Philip still is with us.
That guy did good stuff. So
he did fabulous stuff. I really respect him.
Well, good morning, Robert Strong.
Good morning, Richard Pollock. Hey, you folks are listening to Radio Science News. And I had been doing the math and talking to Libby and Richard and figured out that today, actually closer to next week, but we're going to call it today, is the 15th anniversary of Radio Science News Earth Day, Earth Years rather. It is this is episode number 782 in a series. Any number that ends in a 2, except for 2 itself, is not a prime number.
True.
The factors are 2, 17, and 23. This is April 24th, 2021. I can't believe that we've been doing this for 15 years. You don't look a day older.
If you had your glasses on, you'd be okay.
Well, they're all sort of hogged up.
Well, hey, that is good news. I mean,
yes.
First of all, it's not so much that I feel good that we've been able to hang around. I was worried that science was going to go away.
I was a little feared for it myself. Hey,
we're both here.
Just before we went on the air, Richard and I were talking, and Richard goes, 15 years, really? And this is his quote. He said, "We've been hating the obvious and missing the point for 15 years now."
Well, yeah.
I'm good. That's pretty good.
To leave something for
Richard J. Pollock.
Well, listen. I wanted to get people rolling to the Radio Science News pages.
Roll on. Here we go. Okay, so if you go to my favorite webpage on the internet, which is www.smartcenter.org, smartcenter.org. And by the way, if you're not driving one of those cars that drive itself, please pull over. Okay. When you get there, you'll see the little trifecta rainbows down there. Those are the T-shirts that Richard took some pictures of. I don't know where that T-shirt is, and I believe that there was only one.
I should have washed it in cold.
Oh, it shrunk.
It may still be around. It may have faded, but
it turned into a hand puppet.
Well.
Okay, so I'm going to click on the link to Radio Science News, and that takes us to the launch pad of science.
There we go.
I clicked on it.
Look at all this.
Is it going to take? There we go. My computer's a little slow this morning.
Look, we got J and J. We've got the double mutant.
2X mutant.
Yeah, well, that was shorter than double, so I put. Okay. It still looks mathy too. When you got that 2X.
It looks really good. J and J 2X mutant.
Earth Day Ingenuity.
Moxie Mars rover. Mars Life SpaceX. SARS genes.
Then I went into the mineral section of Radio Science.
The copper, fool's gold, astrophysics, skeptic, moat
aquaculture.
Okay, I don't know about moat.
Well, there's a cool little story that popped up on the news over the weekend, and I thought it was kind of cool, and then I looked, and they've been around since like 2000, so it's a cool little thing. Then I put up the WHO chart.
And this is a World Health Organization, I assume.
This is, not the Doctor Who chart.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's a big chart where you can see, well, who is Doctor Who now? And,
who was Doctor Who
where
then?
Is he? And what kind of, garbage cans are they using for robots? What is it? Anyway, I had to put up the WHO chart because just as Robert and I were talking about the fact that when when they actually, in a very mysterious and strange and probably not ethical thing, kind of stopped the CCD from giving out data.
Yeah, wasn't that strange?
But that a public group took over the data
Yeah.
and started putting it out in a way that was really easily digestible. You could kind of look at it, and it had like
elegant
5 charts that cover. But now it's more. It contains more information
that you
but it's
can't
harder
understand.
It's harder to get to.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
CCD charts. So I actually put up the World
WHO
Health
charts.
Organization's chart just to kind of take a look at that. In fact, let's hit that first because I want to continue to say that there's no question that the current COVID-19 issues are it's certainly to me the most important thing in various. I'm noticing this isn't loading. What's going on here? So
I'm getting something weird.
It's anyway. This is the World Health Organization's coronavirus dashboard. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe I have to click on. I'm going to click on overview and see if that changes
let's
it.
click on overview.
Gosh, I hope this isn't one more piece of information that won't work.
Let's go to the. I had a table. Situation by region. I'm just getting two lines essentially.
Yeah, I looked at this morning. It was pretty.
Explore. Well, they probably went, oh man,
well,
those
and it's
guys
also
from Radio Science News are going to be using our thing.
It's also possible that a lot of people are loading it up. Okay, yeah, I went to
explore the data. Let's try that.
Yeah, I went globally as of 5:14 p.m. They want you to read the terms. I don't want to read the terms.
I don't want to read terms. I just want to use your website.
I accept it, please. Oh, it's long. It's real long. Then do I have to accept it?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But I can't click out of it.
Well, of course not. So you either accept it or you leave.
I do accept it, but I can't see any place to accept the terms. See, here were two science people struggling with science.
Yeah. Okay. So down in my lower right hand, there was a little place, a place for me to accept it.
Okay.
And the only thing I'm getting, I went to.
Well, it's kind of like a lot of the online
globally
stuff.
As of 5:14 p.m. CEST, 23rd April 2021, there have been 144 million, et cetera, confirmed cases of COVID-19. Yeah. I guess this is in the U.S. That is globally. 3,066,113 deaths received by the World Health Organization from national authorities.
So were you able to actually accept the...
Yes, I was. I was able to accept it.
I quit. I'm
okay, that's fine. So that's I'm going to go to the global overview. There's a global epidemic curve. Let's see.
When I looked at it earlier, it had a lot of really good information that seemed to be easily accessible.
But it's asking me to click on things, whereas before it was just there.
Yeah, it came up with the 5. It had 5 of the charts.
Yeah. So what's happening now is it's asking me to sort of search for things. But if I don't know what I want, I just want some information, and then I try to figure it out. So I have to. And it's taking forever to download. There we go. So new confirmed cases. Wow, this is a scary thing. I've got some interesting graphs here that have
that's what I was going to look at.
Have neat colors. So this is confirmed cases by date of region, World Health Organization. We need to be able to stretch this out because all the dates are collapsed in the x-axis. If I were in charge of this, I would get a third grader that understood graphics and say, hey guys, can we stretch this chart out a little bit further because it's all collapsed down. But what it appears to go down, but I can't tell when. Date in. Looked like that the lowest numbers were in mid-February of 2021 at 170,000 essentially. Currently we're at. You're gonna let me do this. Currently we're at 235,000. Wow, that's truly amazing, and that's of the Americas. So you can do this by African region, the region of the Americas.
Yeah, region, country, territory, and area.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, it as of all things, it's going to take a little getting used to looking at this chart, but there is useful data.
Well, the main thing now, again, I'm saying here we are, two supposed scientists having trouble with supposedly technology, because mine is not loading well. But when I looked at it, one of the big things that it was starting to indicate, and it may have been within the United States or the Western Hemisphere, was that with the the B117,
Yeah.
that's a real serious thing. But the part of what they were saying is that even for people who had previously contracted the original, which I think is B112 or whatever, I don't have it in front of me, that you're just still real. Oh, now here's finally loading up. Anyway, the point was you're still very, very susceptible to the variants. And it's almost like, I don't want to say this, it's almost like a whole separate, the variant it's almost like a new coronavirus. It's not that it's completely new by not a problem. And one thing about they didn't have until we generate across. Now they're being so long on data there is and
I'll etc. If you go to there's a little mini graph,
right?
New cases, total cases, new deaths, total deaths. Wow. Okay.
It's laid out much better than what we were doing.
This is cool. This is cool. It's just going to take us a little while to get used to this.
Yeah, and I was a little frustrated because I was going to put up a different CCD thing, but literally the links were not working on it today. Yeah. I said I'm not going to subject people to that if I can't do it. Let's jump back to the very beginning.
If you can't get
the big news, of course, last week was the pause in the J&J, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And then today I saw this happens to be from Science News, but basically, the FDA and the CDC are okaying the resuming of Johnson & Johnson COVID shots. But they did mention, they're mentioning some things. And it says the single-dose vaccine carries a low risk of rare blood clots in women under 50, but experts say its benefits outweigh that risk. Now, that's nice to say, but if you happen to be a woman under 50...
That would still be...
Yeah, I'm saying the bad news. There's bad news and there's good news. The bad news is there is this issue, and they need to figure out exactly why. Some people thought it was because of the concurrent effects from using an adenovirus, and that was one of the things that was showing up with the AstraZeneca too. As they figure this out, the one thing they did is they understand the symptomology and they understand the proper way to treat it. So because they are really on top of all this, what should make people feel better, and as Dr. Fauci was saying, is that we are looking at all this stuff really closely, and in the cases where you need to be concerned, they are ready to treat any issues. And especially as they said, when you're looking at the huge number, they had like 6 cases they were looking at from like 7 million plus doses. So and it's going to be important. There's no question that even as we approach the point here in the United States where people are saying, well, we're going to have more vaccines than we're going to have patients that want it. And that has its other issues too, because some people are still saying, no, I don't want it, I'll never take it. The rest of the world is barely vaccinated. Thank you, Zarbox. Let's click on the what people are calling the double mutant. And here's another country who originally didn't look like they were
calling it a double mutant.
Well, around the world, it says it's a variant that is causing real issues in India. And boy, when you're talking about a place where
there's a lot of people there,
what are they calling a double mutant? And it's talking about the fact that in the midst of India's in the midst of its second wave.
Yeah.
Gee, we're all the way over our fourth wave.
We're at a fourth.
Wow.
Look at us.
Wow, this is recording more than 250,000 cases, new cases per day.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Then they're going on to talk about, why do people call this new variant the double mutant? Officially, the variant is called B1617, but many people in media outlets, including the NPR, have actually been referring to it as a double mutant. That's because it has 2 key mutations that have cropped up.
At the same time.
Oh, yeah. And now when they say in 2 other infamous strains, now these are some of the things they expected to happen as they look at the, the chemistry and the morphology of the virus. They said double mutant makes no sense, Anderson says, because it mutates all the time. So there are many double mutants all over the place. Well, I understand, but the referral is that the mutations that have shown up in other serious or viruses to be watched this one has both of them.
All right, and so the first one has been labeled L452R, and the second mutant is called E484Q.
Wow, where are they? Yeah, gee whiz.
I don't know how they're doing that, but okay.
This was E484K. In a nutshell, it has 2 famous mutations,
but it also has about 11 other ones as well.
Wow.
So it's not a double mutation. It's a
2 and another
2
11.
plus 11, which is 13. It says, is this variant double concerning? Is it more contagious? That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of the mutations really have no effect on its transmission or anything.
Exactly.
But the ones especially related to the spike protein things they're very serious because it gives it a better chance to grasp onto the cell wall and transmit the virus. And okay, boy, there's so much going on. Please, pay attention to this. Do what you can. Distancing, masking, get your vaccinations. We're not.
And please be safe and smart.
We're not out of the woods on this, and it's kind of up to all of us to try to find our way. All right, Earth Day, Robert.
I like Earth Day.
Earth Day I couldn't believe it. Earth Day came by this past week, and I wasn't out somewhere eating brown rice and listening to loud rock music, or something.
I know, it was a shame.
Biden,
at the same time, there was a whole bunch of countries around the world that decided to use Earth Day as a reason to say, hey guys, let's consider Earth. Yeah, so I certainly appreciate that. It says Biden's Earth Day climate pledge for 2030 will define his presidency. 2030 is, okay. Meeting the goal of halving, that means in half, greenhouse gas emissions means that every action between now and then will have to be weighed against it.
There probably are some people that were going to hope that he doesn't make it, and that'll make
Wouldn't that be a crying shame?
That would be bad. If people
because the best thing that we can possibly do is do everything that we can to save the planet that we live on.
Well, here's the part that I find astonishing. Having just come through a period of several years where we just decided to ignore and get out of the Paris climate agreement. The picture that they have here, regardless of all the other crazy stuff that's going on in the world, and we do know that there are a lot of things happening. There are things happening in with troops on the border of the Ukraine, all kinds of interesting things, and China and Taiwan, and yet here is a picture. On Thursday, Biden announced his climate goal, and look at this thing. Well, there's a cool big giant green thing in the middle, but. He announced it says he announced his climate goal with leaders from around the world, listening in. And then we have Xi Jinping, China, Vladimir Putin, and Pope Francis. This is really, on that screen, if you look at that big screen like it's a giant Zoom meeting, these are, I saw another thing where they were showing all the different people that are on here. And this is like a level of taking things seriously that is encouraging. Now, this is a kind of a long article, and it points to the thing that a lot of people think is amazing is the United States is going to make a 50% reduction in its greenhouse emissions by 2030, and people think that's just an astonishing thing. I'm saying it's not astonishing, and it can happen.
It can easily happen if we want it to. Yeah. If we want it to.
But the most important issue,
owing to take willpower
and people working together and agreeing to do so around the world. So
it's just if I were to say, hey, I would like to lose some weight, and you say, well,
excuse me,
how much?
Well, sorry, I was just.
I know.
just
And
didn't
if you said, so, I'd like to lose 100 pounds, you'd go, okay, but I don't think you could lose 100 pounds. But if I said a reasonable amount in a reasonable amount of time and I were to stick with it, I can then do that.
Right, and also if you encourage and challenge other people
Yes.
to join you in a reasonable
that
goal.
always helps to have other people going, I am doing this, how are you doing? Right.
Well, and this article has some interesting stuff. We won't go back and relitigate. They go back and point at Solyndra as something that was a scandal.
Oh,
in
yeah,
fact,
long
that's
ago.
not exactly what happened. But anyway,
That's not right.
the good news here is that, as I say, with all the other issues going on, serious leaders, which I think we have in most countries now, are actually addressing this in a serious way.
Yes.
And even if they do it completely from the viewpoint of, it is something I find so amazing that I don't know how many times and how many years ago we would talk about the fact that the environment and economy don't have to be in opposition.
No.
And now I hear so many people who are pointing out the fact that, okay, if you don't want to do this, if you don't want to get on board with these green energies and technologies and electric cars and improving the grid, you're basically ceding all of that economic vitality to other countries.
Someone else.
And I think they're starting to get that now.
You know what? And what you need to do is you need to say one more thing. You're also going to be taking it away from your kids.
Well, that's that, yeah.
So you go, okay, that's fine, but your kids are going to be living in a USA that's going to not be up to the world levels that are all around it.
Well,
and that's not a smart idea.
The best
either.
example I can think of is just the fact that when we started making, when the world started embracing and understanding and making LED lighting, for the longest time, we had to be dragged kicking and screaming. And what happened was China ended up being the leader in making solar panels. Well, the Solyndra thing. That's why I'm almost.
I know.
Part of the reason why China became the leader in solar panel production and windmill parts and even electric cars really back then, because General Motors at that time just ditched their whole EV1 and all that. And LED lighting was because we sat back here and said, no, we're not
No,
going,
we're not
us,
going to do it.
us.
Not us. No way. No
We're not
how.
going for that green stuff, because it seemed like it was to accept things that were, as they called green then, meant that you were opposing the well-entrenched gas and coal and petroleum industry.
Yeah.
So you just have to be smart about it, and I think we can be. In fact, we should have Ingenuity, Robert.
I think we should go to that next. Ingenuity.
This story was cool. I actually set my clock and got up at 6. I think the actual data arrived back here at, I don't know, like 3:30 in the morning, and they were going to, but at like a 6:15 NASA TV, and I put up a link on my little Facebook page. Ingenuity's first black and white image from the air. And there's a little.
Very cool, huh?
Was this the shadow? I think this is the
Yeah.
shadow of it. It's taking its picture of its own shadow. And somewhere on the bottom of that shadow was a little piece of the old little piece of fabric from the original Wright brothers Kitty Hawk flight.
So slick.
That was a cool thing. So there's that's the first picture. Now the thing that was so cool, everybody got so excited. It was fun. And then if you have the time to look at the other stuff, there's the pilot logs first flight on another world, Ingenuity Mars helicopter pilot's logbook. So the guy that was piloting is this guy who's doing it remotely, of course.
Right.
And then just before we leave this, I'm going to click on the first aerial color image of Mars. Is this taken from? Yeah, this must be. What is it? It doesn't say what it is exactly. Am I seeing the shadow of the very bottom? What is that? Maybe. I see what looks like a little pad over here up at the upper left.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking down below, and I can't tell whether my image is kind of glaring here, but it looks like that could be the shadow of the same thing. I don't know. But again, Robert, I just want to point out, there you are, Robert, on the red planet. Look at it. It's just blazing, kind of off-color.
Yeah, it isn't a red planet,
It's just
folks.
got
It's
some
not
oxides
a red
in
planet.
there. It's got some oxides.
It's a rust-colored, a beigey brown tan.
So some really nice images. If you scroll
Excellent
down,
images. Really
scroll down, you'll
nifty.
see the control. The everybody's got their nice little orange shirts on and they're matched up. And then there's some
a whole
high-res stuff.
Coordinated team.
A lot of people going yes, throwing stuff up in the air and tearing papers, and it's cool. All right, so a lot of good stuff happening on Mars. Let me go back to Moxie. At first I said Moxie. People used to drink a soda called Moxie back in the 20s or 30s. It was like a, zippy kind of thing. And so if you had a lot of energy and spirit, they'd say, kid,
you got a lot of Moxie.
You got a lot of Moxie, which I think meant that you had that effervescent, This is NASA's, one of the cool things that they've done up there while the helicopter was zooming around getting all the news. One of the projects that went on board. So check this out, Robert.
So Moxie stands for Mars Oxygen in situ Resource Utilization Experiment. So Mars.
Where did they get?
Mars oxygen is the OX.
I got it.
And then the in situ is the I. And then they left out resource utilization and then the E for experiment.
Yeah, I'd leave that out too.
Sure.
Starts to sound like it sounds like the titles of some science projects you've judged before. The remarkable yes, anyway. But the cool thing is, this is a nice little chemistry thing. It says Mars flew along to Mars with Perseverance and arrived on February 18th. And on April 20th, the instrument warmed up to about 800 degrees Celsius.
That's pretty toasty.
Wow.
And being that it's toasty, it says it's about the size of a toaster.
Oh, how cool
which
is
I think
that?
is its job is to break oxygen atoms off carbon dioxide, the primary component of Mars's atmosphere. In fact, over 95% of the Martian atmosphere is made of carbon dioxide. So they're going to heat up that carbon dioxide, break off some oxygens from the carbon dioxide, turn it into carbon monoxide and oxygen, and then store off the oxygen.
Nice. Just make sure you don't breathe the wrong one.
No, don't breathe the carbon monoxide. It's like an electrical tree, says the principal investigator. We breathe in CO2 and breathe out oxygen.
That's right.
Now, the people are not doing that, but the experiment, the Moxie experiment is. So it's breathing out oxygen.
I was going to say, Robert, they could. You could actually have plants and do some of that too. Do you know that you could? No.
Wait.
It's another long
So
story.
if you were to send a small plant to Mars, it would do the same thing as the Moxie,
unless you heated
unless you heat it up to 800 degrees Celsius, and then you would make more of this stuff called carbon dioxide.
Well, that's cool.
Burn up your plant.
So some more about that now. Perseverance. That's the rover, right? Well, I'm going to click on the next one that says Mars Rover. This is not like a band of Irish. I can't wait till we have the Irish rovers up on the.
Oh, Irish rovers. Now we're talking.
China names its Mars rover for traditional fire god. Whoa. You notice that they didn't capitalize fire god, and it's going to make somebody mad in China probably. It'll be named Zhurong. I have to get in the right. Zhurong. Oh, you're wrong. No, I'm not.
No, Zhurong.
Zhur. Zhurong is a traditional fire god, according to a government announcer. And this is the Tianwen-1 probe that arrived. It actually, we were finding it very interesting. All these probes arriving at the same time.
It's 11:30.
And we found out it's not a conspiracy. It just had to do
not
with
a conspiracy.
math and orbital dynamics. And
Yes,
things, right?
it has to do with to be able to get you there easily and cheap and fast. You need to all leave at about the same time.
And that's what looking forward, using math and stuff to look forward is good for. It worked. It says according to the it says the rover's title fits the Chinese name for Mars, which is Huo Jing, or Fire Star. And that's fitting. It signifies lighting the flame of China's planetary exploration, according to the Chinese news agency. So, listen, China is getting very aggressive about expanding its technology and exploration and to wit the fact that they pretty much arrived. We're going to all be up there together, I guess,
I for some reason, I'm having a little trouble pulling this up.
Yours isn't loading.
No, but that's okay.
Yeah, so it says that the top candidate for the landing site of the Chinese rover is going to be the Utopia Planitia Rockstorm plane. It's a plane where the Viking II first touched down in 1976.
If I were if I were a country sending something to Mars, I'd send it where there might be a little more water at the surface, just so that I could drill down a little bit and find some ice and see if there's anything in that ice. But hey, that's just me.
Well, it's kind of interesting to see how I don't want to say how crowded it's getting up there, but there's a lot of contention for things up. Now, of course, they haven't checked. Our next topic is Mars life, and I don't know if anybody has checked with the Mars life up there. We used to be concerned about. I remember the theories about the Martians weren't actually on Mars; they were on Deimos and Phobos, and they were just waiting for us to try to land, and they would shoot us out of the sky. That's just conspiracy theory stuff. Anyway,
it says Mars has the right ingredients for present-day microbial life beneath its surface. The study scientists
This is a
finds.
new
Now,
study.
Again, beneath the surface makes a whole lot of sense because on the surface you've got wild a cold and heat that fluctuates back and forth. You've got ultraviolet light that goes right to the surface. You've got cosmic rays that go right to the surface, and you've got some other some nasty chemicals. But if you were to get down far enough under the surface, you could probably have some microbial life. It says this is from Brown University, April 22nd, 2021. New research suggests that rocks in the Martian crust could produce the same kind of chemical energy that supports microbial life deep beneath the Earth's surface.
Wow.
I believe that the term
if the life were there,
thumbs up. Maybe. Yeah. So if there was ever life on Mars, the only place that you're probably going to find it is in the crust. One of the interesting little sound bites that I have run across recently is that the biomass within the Earth's crust is equal to the biomass on the surface of the Earth's crust. So that's
an amazing number.
The Martian crust is because the planet's cooler, the Martian crust goes a lot deeper than the Earth's crust. There could be literally more life on Mars than there is on Earth.
Well, I was always amazed when they were talking about finding the ancient microbes, archaea, things that were like, I don't know, deep in the gold mines in Africa, and they would be bacteria that would divide every thousand. The length of time, but they had survived and they were there. I like this. Sounds pretty much like what you were just talking about. Your landing site choice. It's this one paragraph says the big implication here for subsurface exploration science is that wherever you have groundwater on Mars, there's a good chance you have good enough chemical energy to support subsurface microbial life. This is Jesse Tarnas, postdoc student at JPL. So, this is well, and I think we were talking. I think when we were reading this somewhat critical of Elon Musk thing written by a scientist a week or two ago, they were talking about, if you're going to go up there, let's just plan on getting beneath the surface.
Right.
You're going to be a subsurface. That's the only logical thing to do.
That's the only logical
in the
thing.
near term, and maybe even forever, because to survive on the surface is tough.
It's going to be tough. To continue what Jesse Tarnas was saying, it says, we don't know whether life ever got started beneath the surface of Mars, but if it did, we think there would be ample energy there to sustain it right up to today.
Yeah.
Now, with that kind of thinking, then what you need to do, you need to send a rover with a big drill bit on it and start looking around. That'd be awesome. And the best place is to find out where there's subsurface groundwater. The groundwater doesn't need to be liquid. It would be best if it were. But if there's any volcanic activity even past volcanic activity, those areas are going to be warmer underground. And if you can get any liquid water at all, you're probably going to find something swimming around or
Could be
moving around. Or
big beginning of a new movie right there. Dun, 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 dun. Mars, like, okay, let's see what SpaceX is up to. Again, I found this interesting. We were talking about the last crew that went up to the. It says a recycled. First, this is a story about recycling. We'll send this out to Scott Ludoff, who, if he could recycle one of these, this would be great. They used a SpaceX capsule that they've used before. So basically, this is kind of, I like to call it just reuse, because recycling is not.
Yeah.
They didn't like crunch this up and turn it back into beer cans.
No.
Not that would be a bad idea, but carried 4 astronauts arriving at the International Space Station on Saturday. Third high-flying taxi ride in less than a year. That's what's amazing. I can remember when we were waiting for test after test before they did it.
Right.
And now it's almost, I want to say quietly, they have gone by and they have sent up 3 crews in less than a year using the SpaceX Dragon capsule. Wow. And see, this didn't even... this was kind of on the news, but I didn't see like a big deal with all kinds of coverage.
No, it's been very quiet.
Well, this is interesting. The first time 2 SpaceX Crew Dragons were parked there at the same time at the ISS.
Wow, that's really awesome.
That is really cool. Yeah, and I think that we were talking about how SpaceX also just got, one of the announcements from the Biden team was that they've been given the contract or something. Finally the contract has now been let for them to do this moving into the future, which I guess means the Russians won't be the Baikonur. Site won't be.
It's cost something like $20 million per seat to get people to the International Space Station.
Now, and here's the nice thing too. Even as we looked, I like to be hopeful where we can. I was looking at that conference from Earth Day, and here you have the president of China, Xi Jinping. You have Putin, you have all these other people, and Biden, and they're all, whatever else seems like is contentious on the planet, you're going, they're working together on this. Now, when I look at this last paragraph, this makes me feel good too. It says the current population of the International Space Station includes 6 Americans, 2 Russians, 2 Japanese, and 1 French.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
It is, but we've got Russians, we've got Americans, we've got Japanese, French. It's a truly international space station.
And that's what it needs to be.
And then on Wednesday, it says that 3 Americans and 1 of the Japanese will depart for home and splash down in the Gulf of Mexico. That's just this coming Wednesday. So,
cool.
It's. I don't want to say it's become routine because it never should, but we're doing some exciting stuff, even though we're not very far off the planet.
We are not far off of the planet. In fact, one of the things that when people jump up and down about the International Space Station, it's not low Earth orbit, it's low Earth orbit. It's 1,000th the distance to the moon.
Yeah, it's
the moon is 1,000th the distance to Mars.
It's kind of like a low rider.
So it is you're putting people there in outer space, but it's about as close to inner a space as outer space can be.
It is.
Which is okay, but we don't want to miss the fact that when we go back to the moon, those people are more in space.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
More spaced out, more in space, however you like to say. Now, this thing about the SARS genes. One of the things that always happens in kind of bad situations is that you learn a lot about the situation,
That's true.
Well, and you do, because you have to.
You have to.
You're trying to just stay alive. You're trying to figure out how to, you're trying to figure out how to fight the immediate situation, but in doing so, there's always the hope that you'll find things that'll help you later on. So this is one of the cool things. COVID-19 scientists identify human genes that fight the infection. So we've learned a lot about there's been amazing research done on the structure and everything about the virus itself. But this is really cool because they have basically, this is fascinating to me for a bunch of reasons. let me just read. I'll read down. It's the part that I found really fascinating. They're talking about the fact that they've identified human genes that help fight the SARS-CoV-2 infection, and that probably relates to a bunch of other coronaviruses. But the thing that it's talking about is that the genes in question are related to interferons, the body's frontline virus
See, that makes
fighters.
sense.
Well, and the thing that just jumped out at me, and I'll have to look this up maybe for a future story, topic for future date. I remember that the whole point of the Cuban research and the vaccines they were doing were all based on interferon related things, and apparently with some success. But then we just didn't hear about them, did we?
No, we did not.
I don't know what that means. The idea that some people have recognized the vast importance of interferons, even if we were going to be producing them synthetically and then deploying them as a therapeutic or a preventative, this is backing up the fact that the actual genes in our own bodies that have been really effective as they say, frontline virus fighters, specifically with the SARS-CoV-2, are the genes that relate to producing and regulating the various interferons in our body.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
That is. Hey, I'm looking down. I'm scanning through this, and the second paragraph from the bottom, it says it's vitally important that we do not take our foot off the pedal of basic research efforts.
Oh, yes.
Now that vaccines are helping control the pandemic, we've come
it.
so far so fast because of investment in fundamental research, and our continued efforts will be especially important when, not if, another viral outbreak occurs.
Yeah,
that is hyper.
It is absolutely true. And
Super. We need to say that over and over again. Yeah.
well, one of the big things that we came up short on this last time was that a lot of the stuff that people who said things like this back when the first SARS came out, SARS-CoV-1 is what it would have been. They just called it SARS-CoV because it was the first one. And when Ebola and all these things were put in place, what happened was when people go, well, nobody's sick now.
Nobody's sick now.
Yes,
Do we really need to spend this cash?
That's right. We could
And
be.
the answer is yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Well,
You
even if it's just
have to be prepared.
basic
Yeah,
research.
it's like, well, my house is not on fire now. Do I need to employ these people to drive the truck to the fire? Do I need to employ people to put the fires out if I don't have a fire now?
Well, yes.
Do I really need to do that? Do I need to constantly update this?
Some
And the answer is
scientists say yes, and if so,
And if so,
all right, you're going to like this next one, Robert, because it's, first of all, I love this picture. Look at these little strands of copper wire. Look at that. Aren't they pretty?
copper.
A more efficient, safer alternative.
Okay, now for
sourcing
some reason,
copper.
every time that I go online to this to this server,
Wait, this
I
is
am
your
not
Fizz.org. These are your buddies.
hitting anything.
Oh my gosh! So anything that's like a Fizz.org.
Yeah, I am not. There's nothing comes up, and then when I go over to open, up pops something that has nothing to do with any of.
Oh,
So I
it's
don't know what's going on.
So
with,
I'm getting all the news, and you're just getting all the pop-up ads,
I'm
like how to
getting
rent a
just the
Hertz truck. I have one to rent a Hertz truck.
a Hertz truck. Now
I
we're
have one to
talking.
throw away 3 foods. They're eating an egg. I mean, there's so many pop-ups here. But I'm going to show you. Robert, I will describe for you
Okay.
in full color. There's a beautiful thing showing a whole bunch of. Well, now I got something from Dr. Kahana, MD, gastroenterologist. No, go back. Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
So I got to be very careful what I do here.
yeah.
The really neat story here is
Beware
that
the
It's
Well,
11:45.
thank you, Zarvox, who of course is wired with copper wires.
Oh,
everywhere.
she has lots of copper in her.
He talks about the nice reason why copper remains one of the most ubiquitous metals in everyday life. Oh, it's a conductor of heat and electricity. It's wires and roofing and plumbing. It's just so many
It's
good
the
things.
coins in your
Have
pockets.
I sold you? Now you like copper, right?
I love copper.
like
It's
copper. It's so
delicious.
good. And they use it for so many things. Well, one of the big problems is
There's a
that
problem?
There's some real toxic stuff involved in. So it says Brazil offered conclusive research for understanding how bacteria found in copper mines converts toxic copper ions to stable single atom copper. So what we have here is, once again, for all my friends who are microbiologists are always saying, microbiology is really where it's at. And I go, okay. And people just put out this paper. The idea is that there are these various bacteria that do all the hard work. I mean, they do all the complex the electrochemistry and everything. And they're able to take what is toxic and dangerous. And it says part of the supply challenge comes from limited available copper in the Earth's crust. But the other is that there's sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide in copper smelting processes. And all these things are really bad for you.
They are.
But the idea that you can have a bacteria basically take this and do all the hard work, take all the danger, chew it up and spit it out, and then you have pure copper. Oh my gosh.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so part of it is just getting the process to they talk about the way it all works, but it's it has to be optimized in order. Like you have to get these little guys to just show up at your lab and let you destroy them and remove the copper and stuff. And some of them are not that good. Fool's gold was another fascinating. Since I was sort of going through the metallurgical portion of Radio Science News, this story was just too appealing to let go. First of all, if you're thinking of fool's gold, unless you watch an awful lot of those, there's a lot of those cable shows where they're just like, I don't know, they're traveling all over the earth, digging up places and getting gold. It could be that fool's gold might be even more important or to us as we exist. There's a really beautiful picture of a pyrite crystal.
One of the things that we want to make sure that our listeners understand is that fool's gold is not really gold.
Oh, no.
It just looks like gold.
But
if
it's beautiful.
You don't know what you're seeing, it looks like gold, yes.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful material because, and you think, well, it's got a yellowish color because it's actually, it's made up of iron, it's made up of sulfur.
Right.
And it makes beautiful crystals. But at the same time, if you're thinking about, say, if something is iron and these other, this is a family of things that often ends up being catalysts for all kinds of really interesting stuff. Anyway,
it says here that pyrite is a mineral that is produced when sulfur, which is soluble in the hot water emanating from hydrothermal vents, attaches to iron suspended in the surrounding cold ocean water. This newly produced mineral then accumulates at the bottom of the ocean, creating abundant pyrite mineral surfaces. Isn't that neat? So then once you've got an abundant a pyrite mineral surface, after enough time, it's going to accumulate enough that they're saying, hey, maybe we can come and mine this, and the iron is going to be right there. And it's real easy to get to get the sulfur away from the iron. You just make it hot, and the sulfur sort of just comes right off of it.
Yeah. Now the cool thing about this is they think that when this occurred, it occurred in nature, that it could have been a really important step in, as they say, researchers studied how simple building blocks of life may have attached to these mineral surfaces, and then engaged in further reactions. Like, here they are attaching these surfaces. Now they are in conjunction with one another, and could have been really important for the emergence of life
itself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Got their little atomic force microscope, Robert. Then they're using their laser pointing needle, dragging along the sample. Wow. So anyway,
stuff.
Cool stuff. Let's
beautiful images too.
Now, this next one, I know a lot of times people don't think of science as being poetic. Like the beautiful prose. I mentioned before, like the people that come up with their really interesting science fair titles, Like sometimes I always like, just give me the simplest, most precise, Some people come up with good ones, but this is a story, and I know that, Robert, you spend a lot of your time just thinking about astrophysics.
I do, constantly.
And so, according to this thing, a breakthrough astrophysics code rapidly models stellar collisions. Now, there's a little image. They've got this complex. If you look at this little screenshot, it's dbx.56 silo cycle 56 of some analysis that they're going through, right? But just listen to this thing. They're calling it the it's an astrophysics code, so it's a piece of software, I guess. It's called OctoTiger. But listen, it simulates the evolution of self-gravitating and rotating systems of arbitrary geometry using adaptive mesh refinement and a new method to parallelize the code to achieve superior speeds.
Oh, the hair on my arms just stood up. That is really cool.
I don't know. I'm just saying, you just wouldn't see that. Like you wouldn't see this written on somebody's. This wouldn't be like on a tombstone or something. This is just it might be some scientist, but it has to do with I'm sure a computer code that models stellar collisions. I mean, just the way this was written was I just thought was kind of over the top here. But anyway, this is kind of cool. It's the LSU Center for Computation and Technology, and several other partners came up with this whole big thing. And again, it's trying to. Oh, there's a little video. Why don't you play that video and see if it says anything?
Well, I can't. Because,
it's not playing.
This isn't.
Oh, it's not coming
up for me at all.
Hey, you should double check up at to see if you didn't get sucked onto that Comcast server instead of our famous D-Link.
Well, I am.
You're on the right one?
I am on the D-Link.
Anyway, I'm gonna give you the blow. I'm gonna play it. Now you won't be able to see it.
Right.
Oh, a movie shows an OctoTiger simulation of two white dwarf stars in orbit around each other.
Oh, and I can't see
We're
it.
looking down on the two stars as they start to merge together. The color indicates how dense the gas is in the orbital or mid-plane. Brown indicating the densest gas, and blue the least dense. The arrows indicate the speed of the gas. Red arrows correspond to high velocities. Oh my God, this is just too much. I have to stop. Okay. Anyway, this is really cool. I can see that this is a really complex piece of software, and for people like Robert and myself who just spend all kinds of time thinking about astrophysics.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna get excited about that. Now, you and I have been talking about. In fact, before we go to the next story, I'm going to go back. If you look up above where it says "call," the big number to call in and all that. Mm-hmm. We have the Rossi blog.
Yes, we do.
I'm just going to click on the Rossi blog.
Okay.
Because it's possible, because this next guy, basically, Robert, he feels anybody that's following Rossi, or if they can even find Rossi, they're saying that this is like such an obscure, scam thing that it's not even anywhere. But I think that's kind of weird. I just thought we would go to the Rossi blog reader, which is really easy to find and very available. And I'm going to say it's one of the blogs where if you write to Andre Rossi with a question, he just literally answers you. He'll even answer you in personal email, or he puts it up here. Mm-hmm. I just want to see what they're talking about. Okay, the very first thing is from someone called Lucy. She says, Dr. Rossi, I too am surprised to read that the U.S. Navy has replicated your effect and copied your patent.
Yeah, I don't think they could do that.
Besides, I too think that they granted you, maybe involuntarily, an important acknowledgement, albeit they totally plagiarized your work without citing it even as prior art in their patent application. Now, people are saying, so wait a minute, what are you talking about here? Well, we're talking about the fact that some of the earliest research with Andre Rossi and his investigation of what had been looked at as cold fusion and then became known as lattice assisted or low energy nuclear reactions. Robert and I called it isotope change energy. All kinds of things that have been looked at seriously. And I didn't know this was going to be the first thing, but one of the things we pointed out is that recently, besides this story, is the fact that the U.S. Navy has published a big thing about what they call lattice fusion. Yeah, I'm hearing a little click too. I don't know where it's going.
I'm not sure if it's me or not.
The Navy has actually researched and patented and talked about the real benefits of what could be lattice in the metal lattice of certain metals, a type of confinement that allows you to then put. They were talking about deuterium or hydrogen. And then by exerting, it kind of gets jammed into a corner. I think it was the opposite of a diamond anvil. That you're being, but anyway, that you get pressures that are better than a token. So this is all real stuff. This is happening.
Yeah.
Then right after they published that, literally within days, a patent showed up on the U.S. patent, the PTO, the Patent and Trademark Office. That almost just sounded word for word. The patent that Andre Rossi filed for a low energy nuclear reaction using, nickel as the metal lattice structure and certain, electrical perturbations or enhancements. and he used lithium, and he used also aluminum oxide. It was all well. Anyway, the Navy did the same thing. So here is the first thing on this is the Rossi blog, which is easy to find. I'm surprised to read that they have replicated your effect and copied your patent. And then then Rossi just goes, Lucy, what you say is true.
Warm regards,
Warm
AR.
regards. Okay, so having said that, there's no question that Robert and I have been talking about this a long time, and we don't bite.
For years now.
We're not swallowing any of this hook, line, and sinker, but we've looked at it from the basics of chemistry and physics and what's been going on. And also, when you start to see the U.S. Navy, and you know that they've been researching it for years and years, and that NASA has filed patents.
Yes.
So
you're going, there's probably something here.
Well, but then I was trying to find like a skeptical point of view, and I found this one link that's
called Skeptic.
I guess it's Electrical Engineering something V-blog. It's a electronics community forum. So I went to see, because I was looking for something, and it said this whole thread that they're talking about is the ECAT SKLED, which is going to be, according to Rossi, the first product. We talked about it. If you want to look more, there's a link from last week.
So this says the ECAT SKLED, a decade-old cold fusion scam,
is still being mentioned to this day.
Still being mentioned to this day. This is as of March 31st, 2021.
And this guy is irate. Then he goes to talk about first he puts up what would be an equivalent goofy idea, kind of like, oh, you take a DC motor and an AC generator, and this turns this, and you're going, okay. Anyway, the thing that's interesting, I was reading down through it, and one of the things that I find interesting is he's really irritated because it's like he implies that Rossi's like getting people, he's cheating them out of their money and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking,
and you're going, no, he's not.
He never has. He's never asked for any.
He hasn't ever asked for any money. It says a quick Google search reveals that this scam even has its own a Wikipedia page. So. Yeah. And then he rants and raves that transmuting nickel into copper. So if we hook up some solar panels to this, we can have some solar freaking alchemy. But why stop at copper? Just make it produce gold or platinum and become a billionaire squared. This guy doesn't understand what this is all about.
Well, I just thought
this is your typical scientist going, I don't believe anything that I don't already to believe. I don't want to believe anything that could possibly be new. And if it's new, I'm going to ignore it. And if it goes against what I believe from past science, then it's wrong.
Well, and one of his, like, I'm looking at below, it looks like at the very bottom is kind of, he says, he's talking about, he makes a weird equivalent where he talks about the fact that he ran across in the early days of the internet a guy who was claiming you could run an electric car on a 9-volt battery, and he goes through a whole thing about showing how stupid it was. Yeah. He says finally the guy got a couple of people remaining to make investments in the project. Then he says that Rossi is like this guy. It's amazing not. He could find anyone to actually invest money in the project. Well,
but he's not investing money in the project. There's nobody investing money in the project.
In fact, he doesn't even ask the government.
He absolutely refuses to get anyone to invest in it until it's done.
Now, let's see. I think you started me off. I'm going to have a little more time, so I'm going to go to moat aquaculture. Yeah, because I was just a little bit ahead of you. I want to know why that is. I have about a whole minute left here. This thing was, I saw a really cool story on, I think it was CBS News. I clicked it on because I wanted to get away from some of the other news. And they were doing an up-to-date news story about MOTE, M-O-T-E, Aquaculture Research Park. Now, is yours popping up on that one at all? Can you see that one?
Let's see if it is. Yes.
Okay, so this is, and they had a... They had a real. I actually have almost a whole entire minute to go.
I'm sorry. Then I leap.
No, that's fine. I love listening to that music.
It's 12 o'clock.
I don't know why mine's doing this, but it has to do with my when my log kicked in, I guess. So anyway, the moat.
Sorry, pardon.
Isn't that weird? I'm trying to figure out why do I have a whole minute. Moat Aquaculture Park started in 2001, and part of what they're doing is. They're looking at the fact that the way we're farming the oceans and just really wiping out the the amount of fish there. I watched something on a cable show where they're putting out like a purse seine net that went out for 100 kilometers
those
or
are
something.
Ridiculous.
And especially in area, the thing they were talking about was setting aside parts of the ocean so they would not be allowed to be fished.
Right.
So this thing is talking about the setup they have uses ocean water, and then they recycle everything. They recycle it every time, to reuse it. And so anyway,
neat.
It's a cool article. It's going to sustain our ability to farm and use these healthy things. Hey, visit us next week. We'll talk more about this stuff.